Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Shannon. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm super excited for the conversation. Shannon's already been educating me off camera, so I'm excited to let everyone get a sneak peek into this really cool opportunity. But before we dive into the subject, Shannon, could you just share a little bit about your background, what you love about marketing, kind of catch us up to speed on who you are and what it is you do?
So I'm Shannon Reagan. I am a content marketer by trade. I am currently the director of content marketing at Authenticate, and I run a podcast for them called Needle Stack. It's the open source intelligence podcast, co-producer and co-host on that with my lovely co-hosts, Aubrey Byron and Jeff Phillips. I would be remiss to not mention them, which leads me to what I love about marketing is one of the things that I really love about it is the collaboration. In content marketing, it's a very creative field, and you get to work with really creative and curious people. And I think that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most.
I love it. So you shared with me this kind of phrase that you have from inside the company that I think is just gold. I haven't heard this anywhere else. So I'm going to give you guys the full credit and ownership over this phrase. It's here. It's copyrighted, trademarked for you.
Verbal trademark, yeah.
Be the TV show, not the advertisement.
Yes.
And this is like a really powerful mantra when it comes to your content. Where did this come from, and how has this really changed not only the marketing team, but maybe the company's perspective about how you go to market and how you provide value to customers?
Yeah, it's a great end to that question because it's not just a marketing effort when you make this shift. I would also be remiss in not mentioning my dear boss, Jessica Morales, who I believe she coined this phrase when she was really, overhauling our go-to-market strategy. This was a few years ago. We'd been in just like a very traditional marketing movement. It was pandemic era, so we were doing webinars like until our eyes bled and just, collecting email addresses, qualifying, marketing qualified leads, handing them to sales and gating, tons of content, very self-promotional content. Look at us, look at us, look at us. And, I think there was a time and a place where that was valuable in the way that was done, but it had just created this junk pile. Like sales didn't trust marketing leads. They didn't really want to work them. It led to a lot of wasted effort on our part. And I think we had just kind of bled that stone dry. And so she was like, I want to turn this upside down. And a key component of that became content with great value to our audience and not really asking for much in return, not asking for an email address, certainly in return. We just ungated everything. And doing that was obviously a great upheaval in the go-to-market strategy across the board. So she had to get buy-in from the executives. She had to make sure that sales was on board. Like the number of leads is going to go way down. And they're like, that's okay. Like as long as they're better quality and we can focus our efforts, like that's what we want. So in terms of like being the TV show, not the advertisement, we stopped talking about ourselves as much. We just started offering really great, helpful content that we knew was valuable to our, target audience. And then, by the way, like we also have this product that, is in this space and creating, more of a useful funnel of content. And it paid off. Like it worked like gangbusters. And we're still living in that world now. It was a huge success.
I love that. So when you're talking about it, it also sounds like maybe the quality of your content went up. How did you also have to transition the frequency of how much content you were producing? Did that change, or were the expectations to produce the same amount of content? Did you have bigger campaigns? What was the shift there in this whole movement as well?
Yeah, so we had been in a big like campaign mindset. You would have like a webinar, a report, a white paper, like something big and beefy that, took a lot of time to create, and maybe we were only doing one big thing like that a quarter, and then we would have things dripping off of it. But if that wasn't a hit, then we were kind of screwed. Like we weren't able to fail fast. We failed very slowly and we're very slow to learn from our mistakes. So that big mega campaign content went away. and we just became much more agile. So we shifted from white papers, reports to blogs, like heavy, heavy blogs, no more PDFs, like everything was a web page. It was much more easy to maintain and update and control. It was a very different way of working. It became more of this like newsroom-esque environment, like rather than a more traditional marketing hub. And then, we were blogging a lot more. We were talking about problems that our audience was having and not just problem worshiping. I think that is a huge mistake that you can make in just telling people about a problem that they already know that they have. Versus offering tips and tricks, best practices, like that they can put in place with or without your product. It just, ensures like a lot of brand trust. Another way we did that was through starting a podcast. Like that kind of became more of a tentpole piece, but we could get an episode out every week and then repurpose it into a blog. We would have clips for social media. It was video and audio. Like there was just so much more that we could do with it. We also had this challenge of we have really bright minds within our company, but getting, the information out of their head into a piece of marketing could take a long time. It then just became the podcast itself. We captured that conversation. We would have experts from outside of our company come in and we would capture that conversation and repurpose it.
I love that. So it sounds like in all of that you, with this shift, focus more on timeliness. So did you feel like there was something there when you're saying, okay, let's be the TV, show, not the advertisement, that you're focusing on current trends more, or was it more evergreen? It sounds like maybe there's a common theme there about the kinds of content you produced.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely wanted to balance that we had some stock of evergreen content, but we shifted much more to hot topics, to news items, so that we could be more agile and more relevant. It played much better on social media. Social media has become like a huge, referral source for us. And it just let us also learn from our own content, finding out what's working. You can get, early signals very quickly, and then, we're going to replicate this, or you also get early signals if things are not working, and then you stop doing those things and you can pivot really quickly.
Very cool. So when you talked about the results, like you don't have to share any numbers or any exact metrics or any of that kind of stuff, but you're talking about results and saying that it was much better. When you mean that, what kind of call to actions did you have? What, is this demo forms that were typically being filled out versus other things? Like how did people, it sounds like more self-select where they were at in the journey and reach out. How did that work? And what does that look like?
We definitely allowed for self-education, and then we only left up those high intent pages like demo request, we have a free trial, or contact us. And so when people were ready, we let them raise their hands. Otherwise, our content is more brand awareness. There is sometimes some consideration stage messages weaved in there where appropriate, but we're not shoehorning them in when they're not. So yeah, it's more about bringing people into your orbit, establishing brand trust. I always think of, do you know the movie Miracle on 34th Street, or the story of Miracle on 34th Street?
Which version? I've
Okay,
seen them both.
I'm dating myself, but hopefully obviously for the one that came out in the 90s. That he says, I think this is in the original too, that he says if you want a better deal, go to Kohl's, go to the other store because it's better for you. I always love that. And I think about that a lot in marketing, that if you don't ask for anything in return, you'll actually get a lot in return. Dark funnel is good funnel. And I think that's what we've done with our content, that it was just what, if this is helpful, we love you as our target persona. We love you as our potential customer. We love it as our actual customer. Give it away for free and people will come knocking.
Plus, you already have these big advocates. I think sometimes we're afraid to share the secret sauce. And as you share that and people adopt these really cool solutions for free, they say, okay, cool, I'm bought in, but this is where this idea came from. They must have something that makes this even better. They kind of have to experiment a little bit with it beforehand, before they're really bought into the stance that your company is even taking on solving the problem.
Yeah, there's much less stench of desperation on it, I think. But I think it's also, obviously our sales team has been happy. The quality of leads that they're getting is much better, but they also get a reason to reach out because we're able to kind of make a tour of our use cases, of our different audiences more frequently because we're doing much smaller scale frequent content. They have more of an excuse to reach out. They're like, hey, we just put out this blog on 10 tips for, better threat intelligence using open source information. Yeah. This is very specific. But again, it's fodder for them. It's fodder for us in marketing. It's fodder for social media. It just gives you a lot more to work with.
And it feels like you have really adopted this mentality. Like, obviously, a sale is important, right? No business can survive without sales. But it feels like the actual objective is, how do I provide value? And then if they're ready and when they're ready, they'll come back to me. But like, my job is building relationships. Have you seen that kind of percolate even into the sales teams and things like that? Like what you said, they're sharing content, things like that. Is there like, it feels like there's a culture around this concept. How does that work?
Here's a little confession cam moment. I think I actually suck at marketing in some ways. I at least am bad about going out and consuming content built for marketers, because I feel like I do my job as a content marketer better by immersing myself in the world that our target customers are in. So rather than reading content marketing newsletters, I'm reading OSINT newsletters on open source intelligence gathering, which is what our customer is interested in. And I think because we have been more immersed in that world through our content marketing and our writing and talking and filming, about those topics and giving that out for the sales team to share, they're also just more familiar with, what's going on in that world versus just telling, their prospects of like what's going on at Authenticate, which they don't really care about. So,
no, that's really cool. I love that. Okay, so the time is coming close to an end. So I have one final question to kind of talk about. What would you say is like the hardest thing when it comes to tracking with this system? I feel like when you get everyone on board to do awareness content and value-driven content, things like that, the immediate, especially when you ungate everything, the immediate issue is you can't track as much. How have you fought that fight? How do you track? Is it a trust factor and everyone just knows, okay, well, the bottom of the funnel is working, so we trust in the top? Or how do you look at the analytics side of things?
it definitely is very trust dependent. I think that is, a huge conversation that has to be had across, management of what is the expectation to get out of this? How do we reverse engineer our numbers? If we can't, is that okay? I think one of the advantages of our program is that it's free, except for, the warm bodies doing this internally. We're not paying for PR. We're not paying for sponsored content. We're doing this all within our own realm. And we're getting organic pickup now. Like that has been like the long tail success, is that we're getting picked up in the places that we would want to pay to get seen in. So I think without the cost factor, like that makes the trust part okay. But you do have to track a lot of things, and being in lockstep with like your digital marketing person of what you can track through website content. You have to move away from PDFs. Like you have to do it as a web page is really critical. That is what I'm talking about, more of like at least seeing what works, like what got the most page views, what has good bounce rates, what has good time on page. Sometimes we can track conversion from there as well. It's very rare, or, those numbers are very low, but you identify the KPIs that you can get, and the rest you do just have to pray about.
Yeah, I love it. And it really is, in my opinion, the right way of doing marketing, right? You're providing value, you're immersed in the area, you're clearly an expert in what you're doing. Like you're saying, you're getting picked up, you're doing all this stuff. And I think a lot of these other situations, people want the immediate results. Clearly, this is kind of a long game that you're playing to say, we're an established figure of authority and trust in the space. And it makes an impact when we say something and you really value that position that you're in.
It is a long game, so you have to get buy-in to be okay with that timeline. And when are they going to pull the plug if it's not working, or if you can't demonstrate, some early wins? But because it is a long game, it has the advantage actually of being more fun. Like you're not just talking about the same things over and over and over again, because you're covering current events, you're covering new problems that are emerging. Like it's just much more interesting as a content marketer, like to be in this model versus we have a webinar coming up, I'm writing a blog about a webinar.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, Shannon, as promised, it goes by quickly. Thank you so much for the insights. I love this mantra. I love the culture. I love how you have really focused on this as a business. If anyone's curious and wants to reach out and continue the conversation online, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I am most reachable on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And yeah, let's talk. Let's talk about how you can be the TV show, not the advertisement.
I love it. I love it. That's so cool. Well, again, Shannon, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.